So I guess, and if you have any questions, like I can go kind of any way with this. So please, pop your questions into the chat box. And PopFizz is one of many what I would consider an LMS that's out there. And I've only taught computer science for 2 years, and obviously the pandemic was pretty wacky anyway. So, and I'll go over some of the other ones that are out there. And my real job is I'm the technology director at Earlham Schools.
Oh,
So it's not unusual for me to go to and I work at a small school, so I'll go to an admin team meeting. I'll teach computer science, and then I'll go drive a bus. If you work at a small school, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I just want to kind of have a conversation about we need to get a lot of better about talking is what we do about out here. So I'll talk about PopFizz, but there's a lot of other things that are out there. So I'll just show you kind of what it is that I use PopFizz for. So again, Cory Houghton, I'm the technology director out here. I do teach computer science. We have a computer science track out here. So my contact information is in the presentation. I love to talk to anybody else, whatever it is that you guys use. So feel free to email me if you have anything. I'm out of Earlham. I should be pretty easy to find. And I'll just go through some stuff to kind of calibrate you on how our CS track works. We're a small school district, under 700 kids. But Allie, she does our K through 8 kids. She does, the code.org, all that stuff, built them up. And then she'll teach them about computer science. And then I get them, computer science 1, we use, basically our CSP program. And that's where I really would consider where I do most of my teaching, my capital T teaching. Where I really start to figure out which kids want to go into a programming portion, okay? And that's where, I teach, and I'll let any kid come in and take that course. But then if kids, then I'll hand select kids, that sounds like but we're an ag school, not every kid wants to take programming. And if a kid does want to take programming, they're more than welcome to, but we only get down to a handful of kids that really want to get in and take any type of programming. So then we get into, this would be my track moving forward, which would be, Python, Java, and you can, take it any route, but this is the way that I was taught. And I really only know Python, if you've taught programming, then, the kids, they do a lot of stuff on their own. And I'll talk a little bit about this later, moving on. And like I said, our program out here is very much in its infancy. I just happen to have kids that are very excited about programming. And so, in fact, we got to the end of the first semester this last fall, and I told them, I said, I don't know anything about any of these other programs. And they said, well, we still want to do something. And I looked around, we were virtual at this point in time. I said, I want you to give me head nods. If we do Java, give me a head nod that you understand that I don't know Java. And they all gave me head nods. And so we did Java, and the whole time they were learning it basically on their own. And we did it through PopFizz. And they were very successful throughout the entire time. In fact, I've got 2 kids that are going off now to take computer science in college. So like I said, PopFizz is not the only game in town. In fact, I'm going to use Code High School this next year because PopFizz is a very small, very new company. They just don't have a lot of stuff out there. I'm going to use Code High School this next year for React. If there's any other ones that you want to put on, pop in the chat to talk about. At the very, as I have kids longer, I have to teach them less, I would say. At the very beginning, you have to teach them more as they start to get calibrated the way that I teach things. It's more of just, and I'll talk about this hopefully more, but I just believe, and this is the way that I was taught programming, is you just have to get down and get them in the seats for 30 to 40 minutes a day. And they will do a lot of the stuff on their own. And then I have to, and I do all the setup, I do the assessment, and then I get them into groups, and then they learn, and I do the modeling, right? So even when we're in the class, I will put up Java and I will show them my struggles at the same time. So hopefully that kind of makes sense, but I don't say, okay, this is what a for loop is, and then we go, because I mean, we would all go crazy if we were doing something like that. Okay, so course setup, and I'll get to the course room here pretty soon. But I thought that this is important to talk a little bit about. So same thing. I think it's very important that the kids sit down and they program for 30 to 40 minutes a day. Even the kids that are going to go off and do ag, or they're going to go off and do business. And I have several kids that are like that too, that are just kind of interested in programming. I say, I don't care what you're going to go off and do, but programming is so important. Just get used to doing some type of language, get into this. The kids want to program. I found this throughout all the kids that I've taught. They really want to do it. I just have to create a very safe space that's scaffolded, that's challenging for them, that kind of meets their needs where it is that they're at. And I encourage them to collaborate. Like I let them work in groups, you know, and they don't want the answers. Like they want to work together until they come to a, you know, problem that they absolutely can't overcome. And then we work together as a group to kind of overcome what it is that they've come up against. And I'm very upfront with them that I don't know all the answers, and they are very forgiving whenever they come up against something that I don't know the answer to. You know, I'm more of a facilitator in this role, and that I say that's how it is. You know, especially whenever I'll talk about this in a second. Okay, so the name of this presentation was talking about, you know, I figured I'd probably put a slide in here about virtual, and hopefully we never have to do this again. But I was actually very successful, I felt, whenever because this course was always meant to be virtual, because I was an 8th period class. It was an elective. I said, leave me virtual, because my class is great. I want the kids to program at home. It works really well. We'll just meet once a week. These are all, you know, these are college-bound kids. They do really well at home. So I would just chunk everything up into 2 or 3 week sections. And then, you know, we would get together once a week. Like I made it, you know, very important that the kids would get together. We would talk, you know, once a week. We would go over, you know, whatever they were having problems with on their code. And then actually the less that we met physically, so when we were virtual, I was watching their stuff through, and I'll show you in PopFizz, I saw their progress more often. Okay. So I would see, okay, Courtney's a little bit behind. She needs to catch up. So I would shoot her off an email, and then if she had a problem, then I would, you know, create a little video and show her how to do something and then move forward. So I was actually more active on their stuff on the back end whenever they were virtual versus when they were face to face. Like I could hear their conversations when they were face to face, because I knew where they were at. I didn't have to pay so much attention. When they were face to face, I just would accelerate the timeline because they were working together. They would just move faster whenever we were face to face. I don't know if that makes any sense, but when they were working face to face, I just had to kind of I had to move some things in together. And I would do code walkthroughs. That was a little bit nicer to do. Okay. So PopFizz, I'll go through some of these things in here. And I've got my syllabus on here. One of the really cool things about PopFizz is there's really, as far as I can tell, there's only 2 people that work there. There's the programmer, Jane, and then there's the sales lady. And like Jane, she put together, this is actually the CSA place. This is a CSA course. And she ended up making it into so it's a 30-week course. She made it into a 15-week course for me and made a syllabus for me. So I would do this in 3-week courses or 3-week units. I would just tell the kids, okay, you need to be to 3.2 by the end of, you know, February 1st. And then the kids were always like, okay, hey, I'm at so-and-so place. And then we would just, you know, gradually move to that spot. Most of my kids got done, you know, 2 weeks early by the end of the semester. And so we were always just you know, and we're a standards-based school too. So, you know, and I would look at one of my problems that I had the first semester when I was doing Python was I was grading everything. And that was so much grading and programming, you know, because you can grade everything in programming. But I would just pick one big assignment and then I would just grade that. But by the time we got to those assessments, I knew how they were doing in their programming because I would listen to their conversation. I knew exactly where they were at. So you're welcome to go look at this, you know, check out this the syllabus. It's very comprehensive. Okay. Let me check out the chat real quick. Okay. Yeah, I was very much a facilitator, and I'll be teaching this next fall. I'll actually be teaching Python, and then Java. I'll be teaching Java and React all at the same time. Teaching is a weird way to put it, because I'll really just be monitoring a lot of those kids. Because like I said, I'm the technology director, so I really only have enough time to be able to dedicate to just that one period. And then my computer science one, which is where I really capital T teach at that one time. Okay, so the PopFizz course room, and they really only have a handful of courses. But I mean, if you're building a computer science program, and this is something I was hoping to ask, is if, where it is that you guys might be at. So if you're, I think that I believe that, Python is kind of the cornerstone, is where I would start off at. They do have a physical computing portion. So if you want to do some type of physical computing with the kids, I believe this is in Python. I got into it a little bit, and I can show you this too. So the actual course room, your interface looks exactly the same as what the kids does. So if I pop into this, and I wouldn't necessarily teach it in the way that they have it laid out, but at the end of the day, it all works just fine. And the kids seem to, I mean, as far as I know, they picked up a ton of Python. Okay, so it goes through however it is. It introduces Python, and then you can go through, like, and this is something that I found to be very important too, was when we were face to face, like I would model. Like I would sit up in the classroom in the front of the room, and I would put Java up there on my big board, and I would go through it. And I was probably the worst programmer out of everybody in my class, because their brains are tuned into it. Like they just know how to do this stuff. And then when I would run into a problem, I would say, hey Jackson, how did you go through this? How did you guys figure this out? Because as a teacher, I can actually see how the student, all of my students populate over here, so I can see how they answered stuff. And so I can see, how did Jackson answer this? I can see that Jackson did well on something. Like, oh, that was cool. Like, how did, that's cool how you answered that. And then, so I'm obviously cheating, and I actually, I had to cheat quite a bit, some of those questions, some of those things were hard, but, I would say, how did you guys answer this? Or why did you guys answer it that way? And the kids loved showing the teacher how they did stuff. I mean, they loved it, especially when we got into, really hard, Java part. So I would just go through and, and I would model it the entire time. So, from whatever it be 2:30 to 3, that's what I had for my time for programming for the kids. And I would have my Java up on the board. I would work through, and the kids, this is one of those classes too, where the kids will actually work on it outside of class. So I would see, where they would move forward from the time where school was out until they came in the next day. And I think that this stuff on here is great. It really makes sense. The kids would get to, some problem, and they say, oh, the work on that is actually in, 2.1. So it's very well scaffolded. And then the projects are in yellow. So like I can see, I'm in a student here. So, this is how I would assess them. So I would go back and I would actually run it. And I say, okay, well, this works. And then this is what I was doing wrong last semester, was I was actually grading them on everything that they did. So I can, say, okay, this is good. Maybe add some comments, and then I can save it. And then they actually have grades, and they do have a method to do grading in here. But if you're like every other school, then you have a grade book some other place. So this isn't where I actually did grades, but this is a way that the kids could do. You could actually send feedback to the kids. I would actually email the kids, and tell them, this is where you're having problems. And the kids would frequently email me and say, hey, I'm stuck on, whatever. I'm stuck on, 3.2.2, on drawing something. And I would go and I would look at their code, and I would give them a hint, or I would create a video for them. And then I would send them off, that video, and then I would monitor their progress. So I always thought that this was really cool. When they were virtual, you can turn hints on. so, and there's nothing that would really stop them from moving forward. So, and I think I did this intentionally, like you can't, so you can turn all the hints on. So like nothing will actually stop them from moving forward. But so like here, right? And I did this intentionally for this computer science. Jane made a course room for me just for this. So like this computer scientist made up student. So this student here, this is just some dummy question, you know, like I answer the question incorrectly, right? So as a teacher, I can go through and I can say, well, you know, this fake student answered this incorrectly. So I can see, well, something happened here. You know, do I need to go back through and do I need to follow up? You know, whatever, maybe, probably not. And then I can go back through and I can look and see what their code is. Well, you know, you're just supposed to go through range of 5, but, you know, they wrote in, you know, 50. I mean, do they understand the problem? You know, probably, but they just, you know, whatever, they kind of fat fingered something. So, yeah, so they essentially understood the problem here. And you can turn, like I said, you can turn, and you can turn units off and on, you know, so if you want to keep them on pace, then you can do it that way. There's answers to everything so that, you know, as the teacher, you know, you can know what it is that's going on. And there's actually some kind of lesson plans for each thing, which I thought was pretty cool. I never actually used it. And there's exams too. So like if you wanted to actually give them like a, you know, like a real exam, you can do something like that. And I think I talked about hints too. I thought the hints were pretty cool. Like if you wanted to make it really hard for the kids, then you can turn the hints off. But the hints I thought were pretty handy, you know, because the kids really don't want to. My kids that I had didn't want to use the hints. Like they wanted to figure it out on their own. They did use they use their partners quite a bit, which I thought was totally fine. You know, in the real world, that's if they're going to get into some type of programming, you know, that's the way that they're going to work. But they really wanted to figure out the problem. They rarely came to me saying, Cory, we're stuck. Like once during Java did somebody say, Cory, we're totally stuck. And even then, I ended up calling Jane, the lady who wrote this thing, and she dialed in and she gave the lesson that day. Like that's how much that's how invested she is in this thing. So it was, and because like I said, I didn't know anything about Java. I still barely know anything about Java, and it was really cool. So I think the kids got a lot out of it. So like I said, I really like PopFizz. You know, I'm gonna end up using, and it's really cheap too. Like I think for all of my kids, like we ended up paying like $360 for an entire year. So it was really good. And there's some is there anything else in the course room that you want me to show you?
Yeah, do you see Sam asked you, is there a teacher's guide? Can you see the answers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so everything, I don't know how well I can pull this up right now. Let me get to something a little. Yeah, so hopefully you can see what I'm looking at here, but she'll have an answer for everything that all of the projects that you would go through, right? So here you're creating a list and then you would print something out. Does that answer your question, Sam? And I've gone through to look at this. I think I did several times whenever I was doing Java, because it's not, like I said, it's not my bag. Yep.
Mhm.
Uh,
And then just
yeah.
to clarify, Cory, did you say that the people at PopFizz created all this stuff for you, like this unit, this like this document I'm looking at right now? Did they create that for you?
So if you're gonna do so there's a 30-week CSA class, right? So the kids that want to go and take the CSA exam, that's like the algorithms and talk about recursion. So I'm not a huge. This is yes. There's a 30-week course, and that would like if I were teaching the kid, but my kids aren't really at the 30-week course part yet. They're where we talk about recursion, we talk about binary searches and linear search. Like my kids aren't really there yet. So, but my kids wanted to learn another language, and really, I can teach languages, whatever. It's not that big of a deal for me because I mean, all I do is I just set up the syllabus and then I kind of monitor them. I let them go. But I was kind of in between where I couldn't really go off and do these, this 30-week thing because it was that semester. And I said, hey, can you pare this thing down? And she was like, yeah, I can. She spent all this time and made this 15-week. She made this, and all we really had, because she already had the 30-week, the CSA class that was, the 30-week one. She just cut it down into 15, and it was great. I mean, the kids really liked learning Java, So, and then she even has, if you really want to do the, the 30-week course, she has the example CSA exam. If you want to go and, take some of that stuff. Like I said, my kids aren't there. Maybe in the future I'll have some kids that I get as freshmen that want to take the CSA exam. I just don't have, I don't have any yet. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but.
No, it was great. Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying.
Yeah, and like I said, there's, PopFizz isn't the only game in town. It's, it's very affordable for us. And, like I said, I want to get the kids down, just get used to programming for 30 minutes a day. And PopFizz is great. It helps to scaffold a lot of their stuff. And then I'm very excited to use, Code High School this next year, see what it has to offer. But my kids really enjoy it. It's a really neat way to be able to do things, and they love. I mean, they really like the program, and the parents have really enjoyed getting the kids in there. It's something very useful for what it is they're going to do in the future. Yeah, I mean that's about it. Feel free to reach out to me with any other questions that you guys have. That's about all I want to do, and any other thing I've got, I was probably going to take another half an hour. I don't want to eat into your lunch.
Oh, that was great, Cory. Yeah, great resources. And like I say, so many districts are struggling with where to start. This looks like a really great, easy resource for teachers. I love it that you said I didn't know that much about programming, because we don't need to know a lot about programming to help the kids. So thank you so much. That was really great.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I was just going to put now, we're going to get back in the main room. I'm just going to paste. I can find it, copy the link, to go to the main room, the Zoom room for the main room. Explore link. I'm sorry. I was going to paste it in here, but I can't quite get it to come up. And then you can go to the main room, and there's more prizes. You have to be present to win. We've got some great prizes to give away here at the end of the session. So thanks, Cory, and I hope to see you back in the main room, Zoom room A. And of course, you can go to put the bit in here, if anybody, bit.ly/Heart of Innovation. And all of the links will be on our website. So
thank you.
all right, we'll see you in the main room. Bye-bye.